Welcome back to their Marvel Snap video. Later this week, we're going to be getting a big patch dropping that will be bringing with it not only the direct challenge battle mode that will let you play snap matches directly with a friend using a code, but it'll also be bringing with it balance changes. Last week, I had posted a video that I'll link in the description of this one down below talking about nerfs that I was hoping to see in this upcoming patch, but something that always happens when I post a video suggesting that some cards should be nerfed is that people directly say or imply that any changes you make to cards making them worse makes them unplayable. This really couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, Marvel Snap has a really good history of taking cards that are the best thing in a given format and pulling their power level down to a point where they're no longer omnipresent or oppressive, but they're still very, very playable. Today's video, I would like to highlight a number of cards that were really pretty cracked during the closed beta, but Second Dinner was able to bring them back to a reasonable spot like I'm hoping to see for a few things in the current metagame. Let's go ahead and dive on into talking about some crazy Marvel Snap cards and what they used to do. The card here on our screen, Nova, recently received another nerf, and that was reducing its power from 2 to 1. Very minor change overall, because the reason why you're playing Nova is for its destroy effect, which currently says, when Nova is destroyed, give all your other cards +1 power. During the closed beta, Nova gave +2 power when it was destroyed, and it was omnipresent and easily the best thing to be doing in the game. The best deck in Marvel Snap during that time period was utilizing Moon Girl to copy your Novas on turn 5, so you could deploy 2 Novas and then blow them both up to give your entire board +4 in those final moments of the game. Amusingly enough, this kind of very inbred format where it was the only good thing to be doing actually made Black Bolt a little bit of a counter meta card, because if you could Black Bolt taking their lowest cost card Nova away from them before they Moon Girl doubled it, it left their deck with not a lot to do. So amusing tech, but less than amusing format where Nova was incredibly busted. Fast forward to today, and it's easy to see that the Nova nerf from +2 to +1 was a great change. Nova still sees plenty of regular play paired with Carnage and Killmonger as ways to blow it up, and regularly provides 3, 4, or even 5+ points worth of power under the right circumstances, which is a lot for a 1 energy play still. Speaking of doubling things up with Moon Girl also has not always had the stat line that she enjoys today at 4 energy and 4 power. She was initially a 3 energy, 3 power card during the closed beta that still duplicated our hand in the same way that she does today. Moon Girl's partner in crime, Devil Dinosaur, also went through not 1 but 2 different iterations from the closed beta till now. Initially, Devil Dinosaur was also a 3 energy play, having a base 0 stat line with still the ongoing a +2 card for each in your hand, which meant that Devil Dinosaur could be 14 stats for just 3 resources under the right conditions. This was later changed to a 4 energy, 0 power card, and then eventually the 5 energy, 3 power card that we have today. I think both the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur iterations that we went through were good, and their ending results that we have today are powerful, reasonable cards that are not omnipresent or overbearing in the current Marvel Snap format. That being said, it's kind of interesting to think or muse about what would 3 energy Moon Girl look like inside of a Silver Surfer world, and good golly, what would a 4 energy Devil Dinosaur do with Zabu existing today? The next deck that reached tier 0 or kind of omnipresent status during the closed beta was a deck that the community referred to as Discard Collector. Collector's initial stat line during the closed beta was still 2 energy with 0 base power, but I got a whopping +2 stats every time a card was added to your hand from somewhere other than your deck. This not only made Collector obviously absurd with Moon Girl, but with the discard package featuring Apocalypse and Swarm, this card regularly got to double digits worth of stats, which is way above rate for a 2-drop in Marvel Snap, even if it's one that you had to enable a little bit with deck building decisions. Collector wasn't the only reason that the collector discard deck was pushed, though. Hellcow was almost identical to what we have today. 6 stats, discarded 2 cards from your hand on reveal, but it used to cost just 2 resources as opposed to the 4 that it costs today. This not only allowed Hellcow to put the collector into overdrive when paired with Apocalypse and Swarm, but it also meant that Hellcow was just a generically good card that saw play in a variety of decks as a kind of 6th and final turn play alongside other cheaper plays such as Killmonger, Enchantress, or Shang-Chi. The Hellcow that we've ended up at with today, I think, is a very good place for it to land. It's good at enabling discard decks and still sees play, but it's not just a generically good card that gets slammed into every single shell looking to play cheap things on the final turn. Speaking of discard cards that have been adjusted since the closed beta, Lady Sif originally cost just 2 energy while still having her same on reveal of discarding the highest cost card from our hand, and Ghost Rider costs just 3 resources while bringing back one of your cards that had been discarded at its location. This meant Lady Sif and Ghost Rider were still an incredibly powerful 1-2 punch that were able to both be deployed simultaneously on the 5th turn of the game. This meant you could basically get a 6-drop on turn 5 as well as turn 6, and the 6-drop that you were playing out on turn 5 also came with 7 power worth of other stats from Ghost Rider and Lady Sif. The third and final Tier 0 omnipresent deck that Marvel Snap's closed beta got to experience was a Mr. Negative iteration. Mr. Negative has not always had the -1 power stat line that we see today, which essentially causes you to give up the lane that he is deployed to quite frequently. He previously had 4 points worth of stats while deployed to the board. Overall, I think Mr. Negative is another great example of a card that has ended up in a playable and powerful state while still being a good bit worse than what it was during Marvel Snap's closed beta. In addition to Mr. Negative previously having a larger stat line, another thing that contributed to Mr. Negative's Tier 0 status was the fact that it was one of the best of many different Magik decks in the format. Magik didn't always have this rules text, you can't play this on turn 6. This meant in the Mr. Negative deck specifically, you could deploy this on what was previously the last turn of the game to get an additional negative draw out of your deck, but Magik's power went beyond just being great at drawing you an extra negative card. In fact, when Magik could be deployed on the 6th turn of the game, almost every deck that wasn't filling their board by the 6th turn wanted to play her. The reason for this was simple. When Magik can be deployed on the 6th turn, she gives you this optional kind of get out of jail free card when it comes to seeing what big play your opponent might be making in the final moments. Rather than risking an additional cube double up to see what they're about to play to the board, you would instead play Magik, create limbo, and then be able to make a very calculated decision of, oh, I can beat this or not, meaning that the floor on Magik was she saved you cubes, which was very valuable when it came to laddering up. Another interesting metagame consideration that Magik being played on turn 6 generated was the fact that she actually made leader quite bad during most of the closed beta metagame. The reason for this was, if they played their leader on 6 hoping to copy your powerful play, and you instead were just generating limbo, they spent 6 resources to get 6 power, which was quite embarrassing compared to the busted things that leader is capable of doing in the landscape that we're playing in today. While I definitely wouldn't advocate for changing Magik back to being playable on turn 6 to give us a tool to combat leader, I do think it's interesting to note how changing this card, which was a good change at the time and I think remains a reasonable change today, impacted the power level of another card that went on to become a terror. This is something that people often overlook when it comes to balancing in card games, is that all of these pieces interlock together and it can often be difficult to predict what's going to happen when you knock down the current best thing a peg. Strong Guy is a card that doesn't currently see a ton of play. 4 energy, 4 power, ongoing +6, but it saw a ton of play at a more busted stat line during the closed beta. Strong Guy was initially a 2 energy, 3 power card and still got +6 when your hand was empty. This means Strong Guy was on rate compared to most other 2-drops while also having an incredible upside in the late game, and it paired in a very crazy powerful way with that 2 energy Hellcow that we talked about earlier, which discarded 2 cards from your hand on the 6th turn. That being said, even though Strong Guy doesn't see a ton of play today with its current design, Modak is coming as the Season Pass card next month, which discards your entire hand when you play it out. So that could potentially be the boost that Strong Guy needs to have to come back into the metagame, even with its current existing nerf stat line. The final two cards that were busted during Marvel Snap's closed beta are a pair of Wakandan warriors here, starting with Okoye, who was initially a 1 energy, 1 power card that still gave every card in your deck +1. This meant if you deployed Okoye on the first turn of the game and then played every card that she drew, she was effectively giving you 6 points worth of stats for just 1 resource. The design that we have today is still quite good. 2 energy, 2 power, you draw 4 cards over the course of the rest of the game, can still get up to 6 points of stats, but now costing twice as much energy to do so. Lastly, during the closed beta, Nakia's base power was only 1, but she gave every card in your hand +2. This meant if you played Nakia on the third turn of the game with 5 other cards in your hand, and then you played all those cards out, she was effectively giving you 11 points worth of stats for just 3 resources. This is absolute insanity when it comes to comparing the stat line with other 3-drops, and I think she was definitely rightfully nerfed. That being said, the fact that she was changed to only give 2 cards in your hand +2 means that even with her recently increased power to 2, she's only giving 6 points worth of stats for 3 resources, meaning she doesn't see a ton of play since you don't have very precise control over where those points of stats are being deployed. Regardless of any of our own personal feelings about what cards we're hoping to see buffed or nerfed in the upcoming Marvel Snap Balance Pass, one thing we can hopefully all agree on is that we could probably use meaningful balance patches more frequently than we have. I think you could actually make the argument that in the 3.5 months since Marvel Snap had its open release, we basically haven't had a meaningful balance pass. We've had a few smaller changes here where they gave cards +1 attack or -1 attack, but none of those are really meaningful, impactful differences for most of the cards that were involved in those changes. It is worth noting that a good chunk of the 3.5 months Marvel Snap has been out was over the holiday season for many people, and game devs deserve some time off just like the rest of us during that time of year. Moving forward, as Marvel Snap ramps up into 2023, though, I do hope that we'll get some meaningful balance passes more than once a quarter, whether it's bringing down cards like Leader in a more timely manner or buffing up the handful of cards that just don't see any regular play at the top level to potentially make them more competitive. I think it would be great if we could see meaningful changes at least once per month. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed this trip down Marvel Snap's brief history that we've had so far when it comes to doing balance passes for this game. I think it shows that the Snap team, when they choose to make changes overall, in general, is making good changes that leave most of the cards playable. And in the rare exceptions where something like Nakia gets changed to a point where she's no longer seeing play, they seem to at least acknowledge that by iterating it back up in a more positive direction afterwards. Game design is complicated, and there's a lot of variables that go into balancing formats in a card game, like the Magik change leading to Leader's omnipresence, for example. I don't expect perfection, but I do hope that we see that more regular iteration that I've talked about here happening in Marvel Snap to get the game to an ideal equilibrium state a little bit faster. As always, if you enjoyed my ramblings today, make sure to snap that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel for more. I post game tidbits like this, as well as updates and deck highlights here 7 days a week, and I'd love to see you back again. As one final thing to promote at the end of the video today, later this week on Friday, February 3rd, I'm going to be doing an all-day charity stream for the American Heart Association on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Jeff Hoagland, link in the video description. So if you want to contribute some money to help a good cause out, get me into a wide range of costumes, and make me do various Marvel Snap related gameplay challenges, make sure you stop by then. Thanks as always for watching all the way through to the end of the video. Looking forward to that balance patch coming real soon, and hopefully see you back again tomorrow.